Welcome, dear listener. Tonight we journey back to ancient times, where gods and mortals shaped destiny. Our story centers on Athena, the goddess of wisdom, courage, and calm reason in moments of turmoil. She was not only a goddess of battle, but of knowledge, guiding mortals with clarity and thoughtful insight. Her presence in the Trojan War was not one of cruelty or destruction, but of subtle influence and guidance. Athena stood for strategy, patience, and balance, reminding all that wisdom can triumph over brute force. In the great tales of Troy, much is spoken of heroes, ships, and long years of struggle before the city's fall. Yet beneath the surface, there is another story. One where the wisdom of a goddess shaped mortal decisions. The Trojan War is often remembered as a tale of strength, but it is also a tale of cleverness and foresight. Tonight, we will follow Athena's journey through this legendary conflict, watching events unfold through her eyes. Let us begin not with the clash of arms, but with the quiet power of thought, choice, and timeless wisdom. Introduce Athena, her qualities, symbols, and why she was revered. Highlight her role not as a warrior of destruction, but as a guide of intelligence, fairness, and clever strategies. The story of the Trojan War begins not on a battlefield, but in a peaceful moment among the gods of Olympus. A wedding was being celebrated, a union between Peleus and the sea nymph Thetis, destined to have a great son. The gods gathered with joy, their laughter echoing through halls of divine light, music flowing like endless rivers. Yet, as often in tales of gods and mortals, a small seed of pride and rivalry began to shape a different path. The goddess Eris, who embodied discord, had not been invited to this gathering of unity and celebration. Feeling excluded, she decided to leave behind a token that would stir questions, choices, and fateful divisions. Into the crowd, she cast a shining golden apple, its surface glowing with a brilliance no eye could ignore. On the apple were words inscribed, simple yet dangerous: "For the fairest," a challenge disguised as a gift. The goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite each claimed the apple, each believing herself the true fairest one. Their argument grew strong, for beauty and pride were not easily measured, and none wished to concede defeat. The gods, seeking peace, turned to Zeus, ruler of Olympus, to decide which goddess deserved the golden fruit. Zeus, wise enough to avoid the quarrel, passed the choice to a mortal, hoping human judgment might end it. That mortal was Paris, a prince of Troy, known for his quiet grace, fairness, and a life among the shepherds. He was summoned to a secluded valley, where the three goddesses appeared, radiant yet carrying hidden intent. Each goddess approached Paris with words not only of beauty, but of promise, each offering him a reward. Hera promised him power, kingdoms, and the rule of great lands if he would place the apple in her hands. Aphrodite promised him the love of the most beautiful woman alive, a mortal whose beauty surpassed all others. And Athena, goddess of wisdom, spoke not of power or fleeting love, but of lasting honor and thoughtful glory. She promised Paris wisdom beyond measure, skill in strategy, and the respect that endures through generations. Athena's gift was not wrapped in desire or conquest, but in clarity, balance, and the greatness of the mind. Paris listened with care, his heart drawn in many directions, his mind turning between choice and consequence. The promises glittered before him, each holding a vision of life that could shape the destiny of nations. Athena stood calm, her words gentle yet strong, urging him to choose a path that honored reason and courage. But Paris, swayed by longing, by the pull of love promised by Aphrodite, chose desire over wisdom and honor. He handed the apple to Aphrodite, and in that moment, a decision was sealed, simple yet echoing through time. Athena did not rage, nor did she curse, but her eyes held disappointment, for wisdom had been cast aside. It was not the apple itself that mattered, but the choice it forced, and the future it silently prepared. Paris's decision would bring him Helen, the fairest mortal woman, yet she was already bound to another king. This act would ignite a chain of events, a fire of rivalry and pride, drawing nations into a long struggle. And so, from one apple and one choice, the path toward the Trojan War was set, though few saw it clearly then. Athena, watching from Olympus, understood that mortals often choose desire above thought and passion above reason. Her role would shift from offering a gift to guiding others who still sought clarity in the storm to come. The golden apple became more than a symbol of beauty. It became a symbol of choices, pride, and consequences. Paris's judgment is remembered not only as a tale of love and jealousy, but as a lesson in human decisions. And though Troy still stood tall and proud, Athena's mind had already turned to the wisdom needed for the future. For she knew the story was only beginning, and her guidance would soon be tested on both gods and mortals alike. The story of the Trojan War begins not on a battlefield, but in a peaceful moment among the gods of Olympus. A wedding was being celebrated, a union between Peleus and the sea nymph Thetis, destined to have a great son. The gods gathered with joy, their laughter echoing through halls of divine light, music flowing like endless rivers. Yet, as often in tales of gods and mortals, a small seed of pride and rivalry began to shape a different path. The goddess Eris, who embodied discord, had not been invited to this gathering of unity and celebration. Feeling excluded, she decided to leave behind a token that would stir questions, choices, and fateful divisions. Into the crowd, she cast a shining golden apple, its surface glowing with a brilliance no eye could ignore. On the apple were words inscribed, simple yet dangerous. For the fairest. A challenge disguised as a gift. The goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite each claimed the apple, each believing herself the true fairest one. Their argument grew strong, for beauty and pride were not easily measured, and none wished to concede defeat. The gods, seeking peace, turned to Zeus, ruler of Olympus, to decide which goddess deserved the golden fruit. Zeus, wise enough to avoid the quarrel, passed the choice to a mortal, hoping human judgment might end it. That mortal was Paris, a prince of Troy, known for his quiet grace, fairness, and a life among the shepherds. He was summoned to a secluded valley, where the three goddesses appeared, radiant, yet carrying hidden intent. Each goddess approached Paris with words not only of beauty, but of promise, each offering him a reward. Hera promised him power, kingdoms, and the rule of great lands, if he would place the apple in her hands. Aphrodite promised him the love of the most beautiful woman alive, a mortal whose beauty surpassed all others. And Athena, goddess of wisdom, spoke not of power or fleeting love, but of lasting honor and thoughtful glory. She promised Paris wisdom beyond measure, skill in strategy, and the respect that endures through generations. Athena's gift was not wrapped in desire or conquest, but in clarity, balance, and the greatness of the mind. Paris listened with care, his heart drawn in many directions, his mind turning between choice and consequence. The promises glittered before him, each holding a vision of life that could shape the destiny of nations. Athena stood calm, her words gentle yet strong, urging him to choose a path that honored reason and courage. But Paris, swayed by longing, by the pull of love promised by Aphrodite, chose desire over wisdom and honor. He handed the apple to Aphrodite, and in that moment a decision was sealed, simple yet echoing through time. Athena did not rage, nor did she curse, but her eyes held disappointment, for wisdom had been cast aside. It was not the apple itself that mattered, but the choice it forced, and the future it silently prepared. Paris's decision would bring him Helen, the fairest mortal woman, yet she was already bound to another king. This act would ignite a chain of events, a fire of rivalry and pride, drawing nations into a long struggle. And so, from one apple and one choice, the path toward the Trojan War was set, though few saw it clearly then. Athena, watching from Olympus, understood that mortals often choose desire above thought and passion above reason. Her role would shift from offering a gift to guiding others who still sought clarity in the storm to come. The golden apple became more than a symbol of beauty. It became a symbol of choices, pride, and consequences. Paris's judgment is remembered not only as a tale of love and jealousy, but as a lesson in human decisions. And though Troy still stood tall and proud, Athena's mind had already turned to the wisdom needed for the future. For she knew the story was only beginning, and her guidance would soon be tested on both gods and mortals alike. Odysseus was not the strongest of the Greek heroes, nor the most fiery, but he carried a clever mind. In a world of warriors and kings, he stood out for his words, his ideas, and the calm behind his eyes. Athena saw this spark early, and she chose him as one of her favorites, a mortal who valued thought. He was a king of Ithaca, a land of rocky shores, not wealthy or vast, but filled with hardy people. Odysseus had little taste for war, yet destiny called him to Troy, drawn by oaths and loyalty to allies. When the Greeks gathered their forces, Odysseus tried to avoid the journey, disguising himself in the fields. Athena, knowing the threads of fate, guided events so his mind would not go unused in the coming trial. Once among the Greek leaders, Odysseus's presence grew important, for he was quick to see hidden paths. Athena whispered wisdom to him, quiet thoughts that arrived like sparks of inspiration in his restless mind. While others raised swords or shouted for pride, Odysseus searched for clever ways to solve each problem. One of his earliest tests was to recruit Achilles, hidden away by his mother to avoid the war's summons. Odysseus devised a trick, bringing gifts to tempt the disguised youth, weapons among jewels and silks. When Achilles reached for the spear, Odysseus knew the truth, and thus the Greeks gained their fierce warrior. This moment revealed how wisdom could achieve what brute force could not, and Athena's smile shone unseen. As the army gathered, Odysseus also worked to keep order, soothing tempers between proud kings and rivals. Agamemnon sought dominance, Menelaus sought justice, and many others carried pride heavier than armor. Odysseus's words often bridged their quarrels, reminding them of the cause that bound them together at Troy. Athena strengthened his voice, lending weight to his counsel, so leaders would hear beyond their own pride. Odysseus was not flawless, nor without cunning that could bend truth, but Athena valued his balanced heart. She saw in him a student of patience, someone who listened, calculated, and waited for the right moment. This quality would one day craft the plan that ended the long war, though few foresaw it at the start. Among the soldiers, Odysseus was respected for fairness, though some distrusted his gift for trickery. Yet Athena knew that cleverness was as vital as strength, for wars were not won by swords alone. She nurtured this part of him, guiding his mind like a gardener tending roots before they grew into branches. At night, when fires dimmed and men spoke of home, Odysseus often gazed at the sea, lost in thought. In those moments, Athena was close, a silent presence, offering him clarity through the fog of doubt. Odysseus would become the voice of reason again and again, a reminder that wisdom is also a weapon. Through him, Athena's influence touched the Greeks, even when they did not know her hand was at work. His stories, his strategies, his patience, all became threads in the fabric of the great war to come. Athena had chosen wisely, for Odysseus would stand not just as a hero, but as a vessel for her wisdom. And so, as the ships prepared to sail, the goddess watched over him, knowing his mind would be crucial. The war was not yet at Troy, but already Athena's gift of insight had begun shaping the course of destiny. The Greeks prepared their ships, great wooden vessels lined along the shore like restless horses waiting to run. Sails were raised high, ropes pulled tight, and the sound of hammers echoed as warriors made ready for Troy. The sea stretched wide before them, a path of mystery and danger, leading to a city wrapped in legend. Athena watched from above, her gaze calm, knowing that the voyage itself would test courage and patience. For the ocean was not only waves and wind, but a place where fear and hope often battled in mortal hearts. The soldiers spoke of glory and home, their voices carrying across the decks as seagulls circled overhead. Some feared storms, others dreamed of riches, but all carried the weight of destiny as the ships departed. Odysseus stood at the helm of his ship, eyes sharp, mind steady, guiding men with confidence and quiet thought. Athena breathed into his heart a steady calm, for she knew storms would rise and discipline would be tested. The sea, restless and proud, often turned against men who forgot respect. Yet Athena kept the waters balanced. A sudden wind rose, strong and fierce, tossing the ships, testing the resolve of captains and oarsmen alike. Men shouted, ropes strained, sails cracked. But Athena's unseen hand guided them through chaos into calmer seas. She did not remove every hardship, for lessons must be learned, but she softened the waves to spare their hope. Through nights of stars and mornings of mist, the Greeks sailed onward, each day drawing closer to destiny. They passed islands rich with forests, cliffs sharp against the sea, and lands where whispers of gods lingered. The men offered prayers at dawn, pouring wine into the waves, hoping to win the favor of gods on high. Athena heard, though she asked not for riches or gifts, but for men to use wisdom, courage, and restraint. At times, quarrels rose among the leaders, each proud, each unwilling to bend, their tempers like fire. Odysseus, guided by Athena's calm influence, reminded them that unity was their strongest sail upon the sea. The voyage was not only of distance, but of spirit, teaching them patience and the value of clear minds. Athena took joy in moments when men listened to reason, choosing balance over pride, foresight over anger. The journey stretched on, marked by hunger, storms, and long days where the horizon seemed never to move. Yet even in weariness, songs rose from the decks, voices blending in rhythm with the pull of the oars. Athena smiled, for in song she saw hope, a reminder that even weary hearts can be lifted by harmony. She sent gentle breezes when despair grew heavy, small gifts to remind mortals they were not alone. At night, when men looked to the stars, Athena guided their eyes, teaching them to read the heavens' map. She was a teacher as much as a goddess, reminding them that knowledge was a compass as vital as sails. The sea carried them onward, sometimes kindly, sometimes cruelly, but always testing the strength of spirit. And through it all, Athena remained, not as a storm or a sword, but as wisdom carried in mortal hearts. For the voyage was more than travel to Troy. It was the beginning of transformation for all who sailed. By the time the shores of Asia rose upon the horizon, the Greeks were not the same as when they left. Athena had shaped their journey, unseen but present, guiding them to arrive with not only strength, but wisdom. Troy rose from the shores like a crown of stone, its walls tall and proud, shining beneath the morning sun. The Greeks, weary from the long voyage, gazed upon it with awe, for the city seemed more fortress than home. Its towers reached high, banners flowing in the breeze, a symbol of strength, unity, and human ambition. Behind those walls lived a people proud of their heritage, artists, traders, and warriors bound by tradition. Athena looked upon the city with a quiet respect, for Troy was not only a prize, but a creation of human hands. She admired the walls, said to be built with divine aid. Stones fitted so perfectly they seemed eternal. No storm, no quake, no mortal hand alone could have raised such defenses, a marvel of wisdom and craft. From within, the Trojans lived lives of music, markets, and rituals, unaware of the storm gathering at sea. Priam, their king, wise and aged, ruled with dignity, surrounded by sons of courage and daughters of grace. Among them was Hector, noble and steady, a protector of the city, beloved for his honor and his heart. Athena's gaze lingered on Hector, not in favoritism, but in recognition of the strength born of virtue. Though she stood with the Greeks, she could not ignore the greatness of those who lived behind Troy's gates. For war is never only heroes and foes, but a tapestry of lives, each carrying hope, pride, and sorrow. The Greeks saw only a prize to claim, but Athena understood that Troy was a symbol as much as a city. Its walls held stories, its stones whispered of generations, its people carried dreams as bright as any flame. When the Greeks landed upon the shore, the Trojans looked from their towers, their eyes filled with resolve. There was no fear in their gaze, only readiness to protect their homes, their temples, and their sacred bonds. Athena admired their courage, though she knew fate had already written the city's eventual fall in time. She saw how mortals could create beauty and defend it fiercely, even against the will of gods and destiny. The city of Troy became more than a battleground. It became a stage where human choice would be tested. Athena's role was not to destroy, but to guide, to remind both sides of the power of wisdom and foresight. She whispered to the Greeks of patience, urging them not to rush, but to study the walls, the gates, the land. For strength could not alone breach Troy, but knowledge and cunning might one day reveal its secret path. Odysseus listened, his mind already turning with ideas, seeing the city not as stone, but as a puzzle. Athena's presence steadied him, teaching him that no wall was impenetrable to thought, only to recklessness. The Trojans, meanwhile, drew courage from their unity, gathering in temples to pray, sing, and hold fast. They did not yet know the scale of the trial before them, nor how long the shadow of war would remain. Athena watched in silence, her heart divided between respect for Troy and loyalty to her chosen Greeks. For she saw beauty on both shores, wisdom and pride on both sides, each deserving yet destined to clash. The city itself seemed to breathe, a living thing of stone and spirit, standing tall against the tide of fate. Athena knew its fall would not erase its greatness, for Troy's story would echo through ages, yet unborn. And so she stood, a goddess between walls and ships, watching the first sparks of a fire yet to grow. The Greeks sharpened their resolve, the Trojans prepared their defenses, and the stage for destiny was set. Athena whispered once more to her chosen mortals. Patience, strategy, and wisdom would be their true weapons. The first year of the war began with tension heavy in the air, like a storm gathering before the rain. The Greeks set their camps along the shore, their ships drawn high onto the sand, resting like silent beasts. Fires flickered in the night, voices carried across the waves, each soldier thinking of home and of fate. Athena walked among them, unseen, her presence like a breeze, guiding thoughts, sharpening their resolve. She whispered patience, for the Greeks were eager to rush, but the walls of Troy demanded more than force. Achilles, swift and fierce, tested his men with drills, their shields shining in the sun, their spirits unbroken. Yet Athena reminded even him that strength without wisdom is fire without wood, burning bright but brief. Odysseus listened closely to her whispers, sketching maps in the sand, planning paths, imagining outcomes. His mind turned Troy into a riddle to solve. Each wall, each gate, each watchtower a piece of the puzzle. The Trojans too prepared with devotion, their temples filled with prayer, their leaders steady in their duty. Hector walked the walls, his calm voice lifting spirits, his presence a shield stronger than iron or stone. Athena admired his resolve, for though he was her opponent, he carried the weight of love and loyalty. She saw in him not only a warrior, but a father, a son, and a symbol of the city's unshaken pride. The war's early days were not only battles of strength, but trials of endurance, patience, and cleverness. Skirmishes erupted along the plains, yet Athena shielded her chosen with subtle hands, unseen by mortals. An arrow missed its mark, a spear fell short, a thought stirred in time to save a life, her quiet guidance. But the goddess also sought balance, for she could not strip Troy of its dignity, nor silence its defenders. She knew the war was destined, but destiny did not mean cruelty. It was a test of mortals, not destruction. The Greeks began to feel the weight of the long struggle, their hearts restless, their minds clouded by doubt. Athena soothed them, weaving dreams of triumph, reminding them that wisdom often outlasts brute strength. She inspired leaders to speak with calm, to counsel their men, to hold the line of patience and unity. Nestor, the elder, raised his voice with stories of the past, teaching lessons born of trials long endured. Athena guided his words, turning them into threads that bound the Greeks together, steady and unbroken. At night the sea whispered, the stars shone bright, and Athena's gaze moved between campfires and temples. She watched the Trojans pray to their gods, asking for strength, mercy, and the safety of their beloved walls. In that prayer, Athena heard not only fear, but also love, the eternal spark that gave mortals their resilience. She did not mock it, nor turn away, but carried it as part of the story, a balance of fate and free will. The first year passed not with the fall of Troy, but with the weaving of tension, patience, and silent tests. Athena's hand was in each decision, not to crush, but to guide, to draw mortals closer to their own strength. The Greeks grew wiser under her watch, learning restraint, strategy, and the value of endurance. The Trojans grew prouder, stronger in unity, their faith a fortress as mighty as the walls that guarded them. The goddess knew this was only the beginning, a prelude to years where wisdom and folly would entwine. But in these early days, her gift was patience, her lesson subtle. Wars are not won in haste, but in time. The years pressed onward, and the war settled into a rhythm of waiting, planning, and brief flashes of conflict. What had begun with fierce energy now stretched into a long test of endurance beneath the sun and stars. Athena watched both camps grow weary, their patience thinning, their hopes caught between faith and despair. She knew war was not only a clash of weapons, but a trial of hearts, minds, and the endurance of spirit. The Greeks struggled with distance from home, their hearts aching for families, fields, and familiar shores. Many wondered if the cost of this endless siege was worth the prize, if Troy was worth so many lost years. Athena soothed their doubts, whispering strength, reminding them of the threads of destiny that bound them. She appeared in dreams, her voice calm, urging them to endure, to see the war not as waste, but as a lesson. For she knew that only through struggle could wisdom be born, only through trials could mortals grow. On the walls of Troy, life continued in defiance of the war beyond, a rhythm of markets, feasts, and prayers. The Trojans held to their traditions, weaving music and stories to keep fear and despair from taking root. Athena admired their resilience, for even under threat, they chose life, culture, and dignity over surrender. Hector became a pillar of hope, his steady hand guiding not just warriors, but children, women, and elders. His voice carried across the city like a promise that their walls would not fall, their spirits would not break. Priam, wise and steady, reminded his people that fate was uncertain, but unity gave strength against despair. Athena watched him with respect, for leadership built on compassion carried a power even gods could admire. Years passed, seasons turned, and the war became less about victory and more about endurance and survival. The Greeks built walls around their camps, a city of tents and timber that grew into a second settlement. This strange mirror of Troy stood as proof of how mortals adapt, creating homes even in the shadow of war. Athena walked among both, unseen yet felt, guiding hands, sparking thoughts, preserving courage and order. She did not act to end the war quickly, for destiny was not yet ready. But she ensured wisdom was not lost. For every rash decision, she whispered restraint. For every moment of despair, she planted a seed of hope. Even the youngest soldiers felt her touch, a calm in their dreams, a sense that their struggle held meaning. The Trojans, too, felt her balance, for she would not let them be crushed without dignity or forgotten pride. Their festivals continued, their children learned songs, their poets crafted verses of love and of faith. Athena's hand wove through these moments, for war is not only fought in armor, but also in hearts and homes. She watched as the war became not a battle of days, but a saga of years, a story that shaped all who lived it. The Greeks grew stronger in patience, learning strategy as much from waiting as from fighting on the plains. The Trojans grew stronger in unity, binding themselves together with tradition, ritual, and shared resolve. Athena saw that both sides gained something precious, even as the war dragged on without end in sight. For wisdom was not born of quick victory, but of long endurance, of facing despair and still choosing hope. The 8th year of the war passed like this, not with the fall of walls, but with the forging of resilience. Athena's lesson was clear, though few understood it then. Struggle tempers the soul like fire tempers steel. And so she watched, silent yet near, weaving patience into mortals who longed for peace, yet endured the storm. The 9th year of the war dawned with weariness, yet also with sparks of tension that stirred both camps awake. The Greeks had endured long, their ships weathered, their spirits tested, their leaders restless for resolution. Quarrels rose among them, voices sharp in council, as pride and anger flared like flames fed by dry wood. Athena watched with careful eyes, for discord among allies could undo years of struggle more than any foe. Agamemnon, the commander, heavy with pride. Demanded honor, his words sharp, his tone filled with command. Achilles, fierce and unyielding, answered with anger, his heart burning against insult and wounded pride. The quarrel shook the camp like thunder, two great leaders clashing in spirit though not in battle that day. Athena knew this strife was dangerous, for a divided army weakens faster than walls struck by a storm. She appeared in thought, her hand steady on Achilles' mind, urging restraint, whispering calm into his fury. Her words were clear. Anger unchecked destroys not enemies, but friends. Not foes, but the heart of unity. Yet even divine whispers cannot always silence mortal pride, and Achilles' spirit stormed with wounded honor. He withdrew from the fighting, his rage heavy. His absence felt like a missing pillar from the Greek cause. The soldiers murmured, fear in their eyes. For without him their strength seemed less, their confidence shaken. Athena moved swiftly, guiding Odysseus, urging him to speak, to turn despair into strategy and resolve. Odysseus rose with calm words, weaving sense into passion, reminding the Greeks of patience and endurance. He became a steadying hand, not to erase anger, but to redirect it toward the greater trial that lay ahead. Athena admired his balance, for wisdom often lies not in silencing fire, but in shaping how it burns. Meanwhile, within Troy, the people sensed the shift, the lull in Greek attack, the breath between storms. Hector walked the walls with steady pace, his eyes sharp, his voice lifting courage as he spoke of unity. Athena's gaze lingered on him, seeing the quiet nobility of a man bound not by pride, but by duty and love. She admired his fairness, his care for his people, a mirror of what true leadership should be in war's shadow. In this year, battles still flickered, but the greater struggle unfolded in hearts, minds, and wounded pride. Athena saw how discord could be as dangerous as spears, how anger could divide, weaken, and destroy. She worked tirelessly to temper it, weaving dreams, guiding counsel, softening words at the edge of wrath. Her presence became the balance between pride and patience, a quiet force shaping the tide of the war. The Greeks slowly steadied, though the wound of Achilles' absence remained like a shadow across their camp. The Trojans grew bolder, sensing advantage, yet Athena ensured their steps did not outpace wisdom or fate. For she kept the scales even, never allowing one side to break too soon, for the story was still unfolding. She saw that the war was not only a clash of walls and weapons, but of egos, choices, and fragile alliances. The 9th year ended, not with a grand victory, but with a lesson, that pride can wound deeper than any blade. Athena's role became clearer to those who listened. Wisdom is not just counsel, but the shield of unity itself. She whispered to leaders, guided the young, steadied the fearful, a goddess unseen yet felt in every heart. And as the year closed, the war pressed on, still unresolved, still testing, still teaching what mortals could bear. The 10th year of the war dawned heavy with silence, as if even the winds paused to hear what fate would decide. The Greeks, weary and restless, felt the weight of time pressing on their shoulders like unseen armor. Athena walked among them unseen, her presence steady, her wisdom guiding thoughts in moments of despair. She knew this year would test them more than any before, for time wears down courage as waves wear stone. Achilles still held to his anger, distant from battle, his pride an unhealed wound in the heart of the Greeks. Athena whispered to him in dreams, urging him to see beyond insult, to remember his purpose and his people. But pride is a stubborn flame, and Achilles resisted, though her words lingered like echoes in his spirit. The Greeks pressed on without him, their leaders seeking counsel, their strategies born of patience and need. Odysseus spoke often, his mind sharp as ever, weaving hope from reason, turning doubt into careful resolve. Athena favored him, guiding his words, for his tongue was as powerful as his spear in shaping men's courage. The Trojans, behind their walls, watched with growing boldness, sensing the weakness in their weary foes. Hector's voice carried strength, reminding his people of duty, love, and the sacred trust of their ancestors. Athena admired him, though he stood on the other side, for his heart shone with honor that even gods respect. She saw in him the reflection of what leadership should be. Not pride, but care, not anger, but steady resolve. The war this year became more than sieges and skirmishes. It became a mirror of human hearts under strain. Athena guided both sides, not to choose favorites, but to ensure balance, for each held lessons for mortals. She inspired patience in the Greeks, caution in the Trojans, weaving wisdom into choices great and small. In the stillness of night, when fires burned low, soldiers dreamed of her, though they knew not her presence. She whispered courage. She whispered restraint. She whispered that endurance was as noble as victory itself. The 10th year unfolded with trials not of swords, but of endurance, trust, and the courage to wait. Athena's hand turned despair into discipline, shaping restless energy into strategy, guiding chaos into order. When quarrels rose, she calmed them. When fear spread, she steadied it. When pride swelled, she tempered it. The Greeks built new engines, tested new plans, while Athena urged them to think, not only to strike. She reminded them that the wisdom wins where strength alone falters, and patience reveals paths unseen by haste. Within Troy, festivals continued, songs rose, and Athena admired how mortals clung to life even in shadow. She saw the poets, the children, the families who endured, their hope burning brighter than any temple flame. She carried their prayers with respect, for in them was the essence of humanity. Resilience, born of love. The 10th year did not end with a fall or triumph, but with the deepening of resolve on both sides. Athena knew destiny still waited ahead, the turning of the tale not yet ready to unfold its full design. But she also knew that every moment mattered. Every lesson shaped the story that mortals would remember. For in the silence, in the waiting, in the endurance, wisdom was forged stronger than bronze or stone. Athena's presence became the quiet shield of patience, the unseen guide who taught mortals to endure. The year closed not with victory, but with balance, a fragile peace held in the storm of an endless war. The end of the war did not arrive with thunder, but with silence that spread through Troy like a quiet dawn. The Greeks, weary yet unyielding, brought forth a gift, a wooden horse tall as towers and carved with care. The Trojans gazed in wonder, debating its meaning, unsure if it was offering, surrender, or something more. Athena's eyes watched closely, for the horse was more than wood. It was a vessel for destiny itself. She whispered not to mortals, but to fate, for the time had come for the tale to turn toward its closing. The Trojans rejoiced, believing in triumph, their voices rising in song, their hearts lifted by fragile hope. Hector no longer walked among them, his memory a shadow, but his spirit lingered in every wall and street. Athena felt both sorrow and pride, for mortals grasp joy even at the edge of sorrow, even at destiny's door. The horse was drawn within the walls, and with it entered the silence that precedes great change in the world. Athena did not strike, did not command, but guided the threads of fate woven long before the war began. For she knew that wisdom is not always warning, Sometimes it is silence, letting lessons unfold in their time. The night fell calm. Stars spread like seeds of light, while within Troy dreams bloomed of peace returning. Yet Athena saw what dawn would bring, not in cruelty, but as the end of one story and the beginning of another. The Greeks, hidden within the horse, waited with breaths held, their courage tempered by years of struggle. Athena shielded their silence, held back suspicion, and ensured that destiny's path remained clear until dawn. When the gates of fate opened, when fire and ruin followed, Athena wept, though her face remained serene. She mourned not for walls, but for lives, for hope interrupted, for the lessons mortals must carry forward. For every war, however grand, however told, ends not in triumph, but in the quiet weight of memory. The Greeks sailed home, carrying both pride and grief, their ships heavy with spoils and heavier with sorrow. Athena walked among them, unseen, teaching that victory without wisdom is a hollow and fleeting crown. She guided Odysseus, whose journey home would test him longer than the war, shaping his cunning into wisdom. She comforted those who prayed, whispering strength, for even survivors bear wounds unseen by the eye. And in Troy's ruins, Athena lingered, honoring the courage of its people, their love, their steadfast hearts. For true legacy is not in conquest, but in memory, in stories carried onward by those who remain. The Trojan War closed not with heroes raised high, but with lessons written deep in the fabric of time. Athena's voice became softer, no longer urging to fight, but urging to remember, to learn, to endure. She became a guardian of memory, watching as poets sang, as storytellers shaped sorrow into wisdom. Her role was never to choose a side, but to guide mortals through the storm, toward understanding beyond pride. The war ended, yet Athena's presence endured, reminding all that wisdom is the truest victory of the soul. For gods may shape paths, but mortals walk them, and it is in their choices that the world finds its story. And so the tale of Troy, of heroes and loss, of Athena's quiet guidance, passed into legend, never forgotten.